Taurus GX4, and you're going to get your magazines, your instructions, extra back strap. This is the tool to actually take down the firearm. Kind of cool that they send that in there. And here's the firearm you're going to get. Let's go ahead and let's get this out of here. Let's put the Toro versus the standard GX4. Absolutely no difference between these firearms. Same sights on them, same sizes. The only difference is this one is cut here for your optic on the top. When I make these videos, I get a lot of comments from people that say you don't have to remove the slide. It doesn't matter how long your screw is, things like that. It actually does on certain models of guns. So you'll have to determine based on your gun and the way it's designed and built, length of screws, things like that. But here's the optic we're going to put on here. This is the Holosun HS507K. This is the X2 series. So we're going to get the 32-inch circle with a 2-inch dot in the center. I like the 32-inch circle better because it helps me acquire that 2-inch dot in the center a whole lot faster for me. So it tells us in the installation of the slide to tighten to 15 inch-pounds. 15 inch-pounds, and to use non-permanent medium blue thread locker. We've got our Wheeler fat wrench and we've went ahead and set it to 15 inch-pounds, so we're ready to tighten this down properly. Let's see what you get here. Your actual optic here. I really like these Holosun optics. I've gone to all these on my guns. So you've got two sets of screws here. One's just a little thicker than the other, so we'll take this plate off and see which one fits. And then you've got your wrench here to tighten it up. So this is all I'm going to store. These pieces with one of these two screws here. And we're going to write on here what gun this is on right now. This is on the Taurus. So now we know which one it's on. We can save this. T15. T15 is what's going to fit the top of this. So first thing we're going to need to do is take this off right here. Okay, so that screws on there really, really tight. So is this. We do not want to break this screw off. We don't want to shear it. So let's go ahead and take our slide off, put it in the vise, and I'll show you how I get that screw out since it's in there a little bit too tight. To take this gun down, we're going to, chambers clear, we're going to pull the trigger. After we pull the trigger, we're going to use the little tool they give you. Any screwdriver will do this though, piece of brass. You stick it in here and you just spin it. Let's see, it goes that way. Did you see when I turned it? The back jumped out right here. Now all you gotta do is slide it apart to disassemble it. So we won't need this. We'll set this to the side. Let's go ahead, take our spring out and our barrel. We won't need that either. Screws are not visible down here, so we shouldn't have to remove firing pin or anything in here like you have to do on the SIG P320 series to do it. We should just be able to remove these screws and screw it in from the top. Let's move this over to the vise. I like to put it in the vise so it's nice and tight, held in place, and I can use both hands to do this. But if you have a screw that's too tight, they won't come out. Now what I've done here is I've heated up my soldering iron. I'm going to put my soldering iron right in here, and I'm just going to hold it down, and I'm going to wait. The soldering iron is going to heat the screw up, break anything loose in it if there's any Loctite on it, hopefully. And once we get it nice and warm, we'll be able to pull it out of there. Now that we've got it heated up, put some heat on it, we're going to try to do this. If this doesn't work, then I would get... So what I've done is I've taken my Allen wrench and I mounted it inside my vice grips here so that I can get a little pressure on it. Now, if you have a little piece of galvanized pipe, you can slide it right on the end of here. Guys, when I do this, I'm going to be able to apply a lot of pressure to this screw. and I do not want to break this thing off. So I'm going to put direct pressure down right here on it, and I'm just going real easy. I'm going to bump, 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 bump. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I don't want to break it, okay? Just nice and easy. I'm bumping it, bumping it. I feel it's moving nice and slow. There we go. So it started to come loose. So now we're going to go back to this guy, and there we go. Comes right out. I get questions all the time from people. What do I do if one of the screws are too tight and I can't get my screw loose? You don't want to break these screws off. If you snap these things off, you're in big trouble in there. So take your time. Remember, if you use something like this, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on it. You don't want to strip the head out here, and you don't want to snap these things off. These are really long screws. Let's get our plate off. Here's your plate. Fairly simple. We got to degrease this, okay? Extremely important that you degrease this. You can see the grease on it here. We want to clean that up. I use a little bit of brake cleaner here. Make sure you're wearing eye protection. We just want to spray a little bit in this hole. Take a Q-tip. Spray your material on your Q-tip. Get your Q-tip down in there. You do not want to skip this step. You want to make sure you do a good job. Look at what's coming out of there. We're going to use the other side. We're going to wet it again. I'm going to clean this side. Look how filthy that side was. I just press down and try to screw it in just like I would the screw so it gets in there, and then we just back it back out. Screw it backwards. Let's try it one more time. Q-tips are inexpensive, okay? If your Loctite doesn't stay, this thing doesn't secure, you'll wish you had wasted a couple of Q-tips. We're going to put a dry one in there and just kind of dry it out a little bit. A little bit of compressed air. When you first start, a little moisture comes out. Do not let it blow moisture down in here. So once we've cleaned it up real good, and if you needed to check the depth on this, you didn't know how deep the screw needed to go in, what I would do is drop a toothpick in, take a black Sharpie, mark it right on the edge. Now I actually have the depth, so I know how long the screw can be or needs to be. We had two sets of screws. So pretty simple here when you compare it. The screw that came out of the hole that we're fixing to put one back in, really thick screw, compared to this little tiny set of screws versus the really thick screws that came with it. Your screws generally come with Loctite on them. Now I make the decision per the screw. If there is plenty of Loctite on the screw, which it is, then I don't add any more to it. If you want to see if your screw is long enough, you just put it on here. Our screw is definitely going to be long enough. It is not too long. You can see the mark on our toothpick here. And remember, there's going to be some space taken up here with the Optic. You really don't have to do anything to your Holosun Optic. Your battery's already in. It comes in from the factory on the side here. Nothing on the bottom. It's got a flush bottom here. Before you mount your Holosun Optic, you must remove these lugs from the back. These are to be used with a different optic. Remove both of these pins from the rear of the slide before you mount your Holosun Optic. Let's drop our optic into position. The T15 will not fit our screws, so we had to get a T10 so it would fit. Let's just start our screws off here. Nice and easy. You don't want to strip these. You want to make sure they grab on their own as you're applying pressure. I'm just taking up the slack out of them. I'm not going to crank these down yet. Once I can get them close, my optic can still wiggle a little bit. So as I begin to tighten these down, I'm going to put pressure on this optic, pushing it to the front of the firearm. I want it to go towards the front because when it fires, the slide catapults to the rear and it tosses the optic to the front, which will, if you have it set to the back a little bit, then your optic could shift forward and then your dot is off. So always make sure you push your optics to the front of the gun so it seats as far forward as possible. We're going to apply a little bit of pressure here, a little bit of pressure here. We're just holding to the front. All right, not too much, because now we're going to switch this over. And remember, we set this at 15 inch-pounds. So let's go to 15 inch-pounds here. Nice and easy. Jump back over here. Nice and easy. Do not tighten one side down completely. Go back and forth, okay? And that one is 15 inch-pounds. And this one's 15 inch-pounds. And you can check it if you want. There we go. That's pretty much it. Your optic is now mounted. So let's put it back on the firearm here. Before we go too much further, get a Ziploc bag, put your instructions in it, put your spare screws in here. Screws that came off your gun with your plate, put your plate in here. And then here is the cover from the optic. We're just going to fold this over so it fits in here. That way I've got all the parts to this gun inside this bag and you can always see what's in there and go back to it. You'll end up in time with a small drawer filled with little bags with all these extra parts and pieces from guns, so go ahead and keep yourself organized. Let's put this back on our gun now. That was relatively simple, wasn't it? Put your barrel back in first, of course, and then we're going to put our spring back on here. The spring slips on really easy. This is a really nice gun, by the way. I know folks talk about the quality of Taurus, but I like Taurus guns. I've had great luck with them. This is a quality small gun here, and we will slide it back on. Really simple to put it back together. And let's turn on our optic. There we go. Our optic is now on. Let's see it on the gun there. And with the extension magazine in it, so that you can see that. I'll rotate it around so you guys can get a good look at it on the gun. Really easy install, doesn't take long to do at all, and something you can do yourself at home. I like this gun. I really like it a lot. I got the GX4 when it first came out, and now I've upgraded to the GX4 Toro. The rear sights on the gun are just a little bit low, but on this optic there are some rear sights built into it. And you can use these sights and still see the very top of your sights, your front sight. So yes, you could still use your iron sights with this. Guys, please remember to let this thing sit for 24 hours so these screws dry. You want that blue Loctite to dry on there before you're at the range shooting this thing so you don't dislodge it or loosen those screws up. 24 hours for the screws to dry.